Hey y'all, I'm sitting here waiting for my son to come out from getting his hair cut, but I wanted to come and to bring you another video related to the topic of the week, which is depression management. I hope you've had a good week, um, or the best week that you can have under the current circumstances. I am most definitely looking forward to the weekend. If I look tired, it's because I am tired. It's been a week. It's been an emotionally charging week. It's been the kind of week that makes you want to come home and lay down. But mommy duties, as we know, don't wait for anyone to feel more awake. We have to just keep moving. So I wanted to talk about the difference between depression and sadness. There is a distinctive difference. Some people ask, is it the same? It is not. Sadness is usually a feeling that's associated with an event. It's a temporary feeling. We usually go through it, and it's usually related to something that's happened. It could be a breakup, it could be a death in the family, it can be um, friendship issues, right? You're always usually able to relate the feeling to a significant event, person, place, or thing. Depression is different because usually sadness is temporary, right? It goes on, it might go on for a couple days, it might go on for a couple weeks. Um, and you're like, okay, and I'll be okay. Like, you might notice that you may come back to sadness around the situation, but eventually the intensity of the feeling will decrease. When it comes to depression, depression is something that's more persistent over longer periods of time, and it's categorized by the symptoms that come with it. So it's increased fatigue, feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness, changes in the mood, changes in appetite, um, isolation, being withdrawn. Um, you might be crying, increased crying, might just feel like stagnant, stuck, or listless, right? Those are some of the symptoms that come with depression. So it's a little different where sadness is more of a temporary feeling that's associated with an event. Depression is more of a persistent experience that sometimes you can't even pinpoint why you're depressed, right? You can't even pinpoint, it can't be connected really to an event. It's just a lot of times brought on, and when it comes, it's hard to shake. And that could go on for weeks or months, sometimes even years. Um, and depression oftentimes will require professional care. I did listen to a podcast recently. It had Jim Carrey. Actually, I think this podcast was done 8 years ago, but it kept coming up in my things to watch on YouTube, so I watched it. And it looks like he was at a film festival in Canada, and he was talking to these two guys who had a podcast, and he was saying how he had struggled with depression. And he did say, I got no longer have depression. I'm not depressed. But he said that when he had saw a spiritualist, and the spiritualist referred to depression as deep rest. And he said it kind of stuck with him because she mentioned that a lot of times we all need to be depressed at some point in our lives. We all need deep rest and a break from the character we've been playing in our lives. And depression is, in Jim Carrey's words, one big fuck you to you, like saying, hey, I no longer want to wear this mask. I no longer want to show up in spaces performatively when I am feeling depressed, right? When I'm feeling stuck, stagnant, hopeless, listless, unhappy, withdrawn, just overall worthless, right? And um, so he referred to it as a deep rest in your body, saying, okay, we quit on you. We're no longer going to be able to show up in this way. We need to rest. And so that is I think one really interesting way to look at depression. And I think depression is more common than people think. It is Black History Month, and I think, just as a person of color, I think it's important to note that sometimes depression can look different, can look the same but be referred to differently across cultures. Like, I think there's times where people close to us have been depressed, and people of different older generations in our family, and they have just said, oh, I just need to lay down for a little bit, or I just need, I just need a few minutes, or, we'll see grandma might be, or aunt, or auntie, or uncle, or mom might be sleeping a lot more than they usually would, not coming out of their room, not coming to social events, cousins, grandparents, not coming to social events, not being as happy as they used to. In cross cultures, it could be referred to differently as just, oh, she's just real tired, or she's just going through something, or she's just having a hard time right now, right? And all the while, it's depression. And I think, across cultures, depression is oftentimes dealt with differently. Some cultures have a hard time recognizing that depression is a real thing, and sometimes it goes untreated, and it becomes a deeper issue over time, where cultures are refusing to recognize. I think we've come a long way with this, but there has been a time where people just refuse to believe that people could be depressed. Like, well, what do you have to be depressed about? This is happening for you, and this is happening for you. But science has started to evolve, and we've gotten a greater understanding around mental health, and the understanding that sometimes depression doesn't need a motivation. Sometimes it just will come over you when you're dealing with chronic stress over time, you're dealing with unresolved trauma still living in your body, and you've gone through a significant event that you just tried to press forward or press through, and finally your body just continues to try to make sense of what has happened to it, and then it can't, and it gives up and says, we're not doing this anymore, and your body shuts down, and you begin to withdraw, and you begin to experience more intense sadness and more intense emotions, which will lead to you being depressed. So I think something to keep in mind when we start to talk about wellness and healing around depression is that it takes a multi-faceted approach. Depression can sometimes be affected. Sometimes, I would say, I think more studies are starting to be connected to, most times it's our intake. We have to take a good look at our intakes and our outtakes, our inputs and our outputs, right? The things that we're putting into our body will show up in our external world. And that is not just with food, but it's what we're listening to. It's what we're surrounded by in our environment. It's what we're hearing, tasting, seeing, feeling. All of those things have a greater effect on whether we will experience depression in our lifetime. Watching the foods that we eat. If we're constantly eating fast foods and greasy foods and foods that with no nutritional value, your body will, over time, register that, and won't be able to properly digest those in our systems, and will weigh and slow our systems down. Science has shown this. So being able to have a more balanced diet of fruits and vegetables, and drinking smoothies instead of heavy greasy foods in the morning for breakfast, or drinking more water, eating and consuming less processed sugars. I personally love a good salad, and kava has been my go-to lunch lately. And I do notice when I eat a more balanced diet, I am more energized. And that brings me to my next topic. And we're thinking about wellness and healing, that physical activity, right? We talked about that earlier this week with healing tools for depression. And one of the healing tools and coping strategies for depression is physical exercise. You start your day with a smoothie or a more balanced breakfast, maybe toast and avocado, maybe sausage bacon, or sausage turkey sausage, some scrambled eggs. And then you just take a 20-minute walk, right? If you are lucky to live in an area with natural sunlight, the best time to get out is first thing in the morning, right? So a lot of times what I've been trying to do is work into my schedule when I get to work. I eat my breakfast, and then I take a quick walk around my building. I also take another walk around lunchtime, and my new thing that I'm trying to work into my schedule is a walk in the evening. But I think I mentioned in our first video that 20-minute walk for 5 days a week has proven to have a significant positive effects on your well-being and your mental health. So we've talked about balanced diet, nutrition, removing stressful things from your life. I think we need to be a lot better at, if somebody is not good for our mental health, if people are talking down to us, belittling us, making us feel bad about ourselves, and making us question our value, we need to remove those things from our life quickly. This is also Heart Health Month, and I was listening to a podcast from I think it's Black Girls Therapy with Joe Harden, Dr. Joy, and she was talking about she had a doctor on there who a cardiovascular doctor, and she was a woman, and she was talking about how Black people experience are one of the number one. First of all, heart disease is one of the number one killers in the nation, but primarily in the Black community, because we're dealing with chronic stress. And so the longer we are exposed to chronic stress for a longer period of time, it shortens the telomeres, and which the telomeres are connected to our arteries and affect our length of life, right? So essentially, the longer you expose yourself to chronic stress, you're shortening your life. You're shortening your lifespan. And so being conscious of what we're exposing ourselves, how long we're allowing ourselves to feel heavy feelings. So one of the best cures for chronic stress and depressed moods is movement. A simple movement, just doing one thing, even if it's just yoga, stretching your body, even if you do a 5-minute yoga practice in the morning, even if it's getting up and walking around your bedroom, walking around your kitchen, walking around your living room, if you can't yet find yourself to get dressed to get out of the house. It's just doing the next indicated thing. If you haven't brushed your teeth, it's just getting up to brush your teeth. It's reorganizing one area in your house of clutter, because sometimes clutter and the way you're keeping your home can contribute to depressed mood as well. So just doing the next indicated thing, but most importantly, removing things in your life that are causing chronic stress. And sometimes we don't have the privilege to be able to fully remove it, but we can control our time. We can control our time spent around it, whether it's social media making us feel bad about ourselves. Well, then we need to create healthier boundaries with social media. Maybe it's not a person, maybe it's an app on our phone that is causing us stress, and we have a lot of power over that if we so choose to begin to set healthy boundaries with social media. And sometimes it's things out of our control, like this presidential election, who's been elected, the things that are happening around his time as president. That can cause a lot of people stress, and it can cause a lot of anxiety around the unknown and people not knowing how all of these things that are happening are going to affect them in their lives. But you can, maybe not watch so much news, or maybe you can take that time, that energy, and that attention and start to work on some of your own personal goals that you have for yourself to put you and your family in a better position. The thing that we do have control over is our legacy. And so no matter who is in power, we have dominion over our own lives. And so we could start to, one step a day, doing one thing that can help put you in a better position and to help change your mental health. And unfortunately, there are systems in the world that really, really depend on people to become so catatonic, that become so stagnant, stuck, unable to move forward, hopeless. unable to do the next thing. They depend on that, because that will allow them to move their agendas forward. So we can't become too stuck, we can't become too stagnant, and we can't become too stuck in our ways that we are not able to move and to act and to create significant change and transformation in our lives. So I just wanted to come up here and talk to you all today about the difference between sadness and depression, and ways that we can move forward in wellness and well-being and healing. I hope this helped. I'll talk to you all soon.